Alright, I've added a few things since last time. I mean, really for structural plan, a lot of this stuff is not necessary. You know, couches, chairs, but your contractor does need to know where your shower is, your sink, your toilet. You know, this needs a gas supply. This also needs some drainage, so those are important things to keep. Dimension wise, you know, your biggest one goes on the outside, then your smaller, then smaller. You can look at a lot of different examples online. I chose the inside of the wall. Some of them actually go from the wall center line, and there is a default to this window center line as well, which is why you see these dimensions. But what we can't see, even though we have our framing underneath, is what that sits on. So we need to add some kind of foundation. I'm going to come into my north elevation. I'm going to highlight this. I'm going to copy it down. I'm going to go down just, let's go 5 feet, because Keen, that's the safest bet for your footings. And I'm going to rename this footings. Now I'm going to go in my view tab. I'm just going to add that in. Alright, so there's this weird thing in Revit where it won't let you draw from this level. So I'm going to come to sill plate. I'm going to hide my walls so that I can see my floor. So I'm going to hide the entire category. Now I can see the edges of my floor. I can come into structure, wall, pick this 12-inch concrete foundation, and I want it to start on footings, go up to sill plate, and have 0 offset. And now I can just say pick lines, but be careful, this is kind of like offset, right? It depends on which side, and we want this sitting under our floor. So I want that dashed line to be under. What the heck just happened? Alright. Footings up to sill plate. Alright, that's fine. None of these elements are visible is absolutely fine to see. Can't keep elements joined. It's not something you want to see. So I might actually, considering these error messages from PickLine, I am just going to draw clockwise now. I already have one up here. Since PickLines is being weird. I have chain on, so I'm just going to keep going until I get to the end. Alright, so theoretically I have 4 new walls. Let's check the 3D view. Excellent. So now there's a great tool in structure with wall footings. So now I just click on the wall and I automatically get footings in there. Again, most of this we're not really going to see until we get to elevations and section cuts. But it'll be nice in the floor plan as well. All right, the other thing we need in our floor plan, I'm going to come to my level 1 copy here, is we need our lolly columns underneath. And now you can see as I zoom in, why is that not? I thought we were going down visibility graphics wise. Yeah. you could decide, yeah, never mind, I'm going to undo that. That's not quite what I wanted to see. All right, so lolly columns, you're probably going to have to load. If you go to Insert, Load Family, I'm going to come in here to Columns, and I'm just going to say round column. All right, so now they exist. These are 5x11s. And if I come in, these are not structural columns, by the way. They are, but they're listed under architectural for some reason here. Our smallest one is currently 6 inches, and this is 5. So I'm going to edit this. I'm going to duplicate it, and I'm going to make a 4-inch. Wrong one again. I'm just going to change this. So I'm going to come to the sill plate level. I'm going to go ahead, and the first one you pop in, you're not going to have a ton of control over. So I'm going to put it right here to start. I don't know the distance just yet. I'll take a measurement. .12 foot. So I'll probably do another one, 12 foot, 11 3/4 from the other side. But first, I want to check the height on this. So I actually want this to go from footings up to sill plate, and I want a -11-inch offset. Alright, now we can't see it, but if I come into my footings, yeah, I can see it now. So now I'm going to do one more thing. I'm going to come in here and say structure isolated. And now that's going to be on here. I've already edited. You're probably only going to have, when you download these, you're only going to have the by 18. I made one 12 inches because that's the thickness of our footing. But let's take a look at 3D. I'm going to go with wireframe real quick. Ooh, that's still super crowded. I'm just going to come from underneath. So that's what we want. You can see it's resting underneath our girder. And now I have two things I can copy. So I'm going to click here and add this. I'm going to come back into my footings level. I'm going to say copy. And I'm just going to come 12 feet this way. Doesn't quite look right. We do another measurement. So it's 13, yeah. And if I measure from the footing, so I need to move this a bit. Come back in here. Which one was that? I'm pretty sure it's this one. Yep. Let's see, I need to move this thing a foot. I do 2 feet to start. See, all that did was delete the dimensions. I'm not critically concerned about that. 11, 8 3/4. What's this spacing? Oh. Not ideal. Anyway, yours is going to be different anyway. Just try and figure out your total spacing. And you probably don't want to be any more than 14 feet in between. Try and make it as even as you can. I'm going to come back in at this point. Click here. And now I'm going to come to, let's see, do I see it in my footings? I don't. So I'm going to say copy. I'm just going to use this model line. And now if I look at 3D, yeah, I've got 4 of them. All right, so back to our floor plan for a second. Electrical needs to show up in here. And that's another family download. So if I come into Insert, Load Family, now I want to look for electrical, architectural, power, distribution, no, not the electrical panel, terminals. Yep, so here's where you can download all your single switch, double switch outlets. So I'm going to go, I don't need floor outlets. I'm going to do regular GFI, and then I'll do a double, single, that'll be plenty. So now I can come into component, place a component, and so if this is a double switch, and I've got it right near the entrance door, yeah, you probably want it somewhere near where the box can be associated to a stud. And then maybe I've got another double switch over here. And then probably in the office, I just need a single right as you walk in. And let's go with actual outlets now. This is where it can get a little tedious once you have a ton of stuff loaded. So you kind of want to limit how many components you load. Outlet, single duplex. And so now I have to have it, you can see your measurements on the bottom. So I need at least one every 6 feet from the corner. But I got a window here. So I'm just going to split the difference. I'm going to come in till I have 3'8". I'll try and do another one here. That's roughly middle. And I don't think I'm more than 6 feet here, so I'm okay. I'll just keep going around. And unfortunately now it's giving me measurements off the bathroom. But again, being an office, probably want one here. And then in the bathroom, you'll need to make sure you switch to GFI. And so you'll want one somewhere over here for your hairdryer and electric razor. Any water that you're near, those receptacles are going to be GFI, GFI, and keep popping them in, following, making sure you're at least every 6 feet. And again, if there's windows, depending on if you want it underneath the window, that's fine. Yeah, you get a dimension, which is nice. You got a maximum of 6 feet you can do, and where you can see right there we're at 9 feet. And pay attention to where the dimensions are coming from, because sometimes this is coming from the center line versus the inside edge. And you need it every 6 feet. So when it comes to things like anchor bolts, we're not really going to get to see those in this plan, but that is something you can absolutely call out in your floor plan. So if you wanted to add a sheet, make a new one, click OK, and now I can drag in my level 1 copy into the sheet. And you can see it's not terribly large. Let me come back to my level 1 copy. I'm going to change this crop region. I'm leaving the elevation points in because as we create more sheets, what will happen is these squares will actually give the sheet number. So if you leave them in, as we add in, the semester goes on and we add these on to different sheets, that will populate on here so people will know, hey, if I want to look at the elevation, I go to that sheet number. All right, so let's uncheck that, and now let's look at our sheet again. And you can see this thing is still pretty small. I know I said 1/8 of an inch is the default, and it is, but that's because Autodesk cares mostly about commercial. So you could absolutely make this 1/4 inch unless you have a massive house. So I'm going to do that. Oh, this is 1/4 inch already. Even at 1/4 inch, let's take a look at what 1/8 of an inch would have looked like. Yeah, way too small. So I have a tiny project here that's only 30 by 40. So yours will probably take up more space than this. So once I'm on here, there's stuff I want to communicate that I don't want to communicate visually because this is already a very crowded image, and a tiny little 5/8 of an inch anchor bolt is going to get lost in this. I can just come to annotate. I can type text. And you want to make sure it's the one with no leader line, because this is more of just an informational. And I can just put bold, notes, and then I can put date, floor framing, or basement notes. So now I can say 5/8 inch anchor bolts. And I can say I want them 6 inches off each corner. And 6 feet on center. And then I can call out, 2 by 6 sill seal, two by 8, joist, 16 inches on center. And you can specify how you want sill plate, sorry. You can specify the sill seal and how that is going to be done. I'm going to put an example on Canvas that has a bunch of notes. You can also look up other examples. And you can keep going with anything you want to call out that's not necessarily visible from the floor plan, like 5 by 11 glulam girder. Um, 4-inch steel column. And then do your measurements and do whatever spacing. Isolated footing, you could put that in again. And then if you wanted to do a separate one for wall framing. But again, your wall framing, this is for your contractor to know how this goes up. So you're going to tell them what kind of lumber. You're either 16 or 24 on center. So I've got 2 by 6. I'm still in bold. 2 by 6. 16 inches. I gotta keep hitting the wrong key here. And then you can call out your headers. You can say, here's a standard header that I want here, and then if there's any exceptions, you can note those. So that's what notes are good for, because you can see this is already super crowded, and we still haven't added our window and door callouts. So let me show that, and then I'll end this already too long video. So I'm going to come in here, and if I come in to annotate, there's this tag. I'm going to say tag all, and I'm just going to say doors. I'm going to say windows, and if you want, you can do stair run tags. Let's see what that looks like. Click OK. And now you can see right outside the windows, this is the number 1 door. I used a lot of the same window, but you can see if I come over to the bathroom, that's a number 4. These are number 13s. The stair gives us our up. It gives us our how many risers, what our run is. You can play around with how much you want and don't want on here. You can also, I'm going to come back to tag all, and you can decide if there's a leader on it, how long it is. So first I'm going to click cancel, and I'm going to undo that last tag so you can see the difference. So I'm going to say tag all, and this time I'm just going to do doors and windows. I'm going to add a leader line, and then you can decide if it's horizontal or vertical and how long. I'm going to click apply. Okay, and so now instead of right on top, you've got a little bit of distance, which now I can drag this, and I can make a decision if I want to move this further out so it doesn't cover the tag. I almost think they're better off inside because of that. And then I could pull these down unless I'm doing another dimension. So I don't expect everybody to get everything on the example that I'm going to share on Canvas. and you're going to make revisions before we get to the end of the semester. But what we do want is something that tells the contractor important information about your house. And that typically is dimensions. We're not doing windows and door schedule for a while, but they need to know about specific outlets. They need to know where your plumbing, any gas lines, and they need to know about your framing choices. I also need to know about your anchor bolts, but they're never going to see them on this drawing. So don't worry about putting rebar and anchor bolts into your model because they're never going to show up. All right, that's it.